Some places hold echoes of the past, lingering, unseen, waiting. In 2005, at a small restaurant in Caledonia, Ontario, something awakened. A presence that watched, a presence that played. And when it didn't get what it wanted, it became something much worse. Frankie was 17 when he started working at the quiet little restaurant. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, except for the basement. It had a heavy, suffocating presence. He ignored it until the night it made itself known. One evening, Frankie used the restroom, closing the door behind him. As he relieved himself, the door creaked open. He turned. No one was there. But now, the basement door stood wide open, locked just moments ago. Frankie dismissed the incident as a prank by his co-worker Lindsay, but she swore she hadn't touched the door. Soon, the basement door started unlocking itself every shift. At first, Frankie suspected Lindsay, until one night they both saw it happen at the same time. They locked it, turned away for a second, and when they looked back, open, the activity grew more aggressive. One night, they walked out of the kitchen. Every door in the hallway was wide open. The sinks were running, steam filling the air. An invisible force had turned on the hot water in every room. Then, another night, they returned to the kitchen after stepping out briefly. A heavy jug of olive oil now stood in the middle of the floor, moved without a sound. Frankie had enough. Standing at the top of the basement stairs, he spoke into the darkness. "We know you're here. Stop opening the door." Silence. Then, before his eyes, the door unlocked and swung open without a sound. A cold presence seeped into the room. Lindsay tried. She asked it to stop. The door stayed shut for the rest of the shift. The final straw came when something ripped open every door in the hallway. The basement door, the bathrooms, the janitor's closet, all flung wide. Lindsay and Frankie stood frozen as the sinks gushed scalding water. The air felt charged, thick with unseen rage. Frankie quit soon after. The restaurant went out of business. The entity remained. Years later, Frankie reconnected with Lindsay. She remembered everything exactly as he did. The restaurant building changed hands, but when Frankie reached out to the new owners, they refused to talk about it. Some hauntings don't just fade away. Some things stay, waiting. Some places were never meant to be disturbed. Some histories refuse to be buried. In the seaside town of Troon, Scotland, an abandoned villa stood like a silent witness to its dark past. They called it Crosby Towers, a place once filled with life, now swallowed by decay. But something lingered in its halls, something unseen, something waiting. We should have been studying for exams, but we were drawn to something far more thrilling. The decaying grandeur of Crosby Towers stood at the edge of our seaside town, its history stretching from whiskey merchants to a forgotten care home. But what remained was nothing more than an empty husk, a place the Church of Scotland abandoned years ago. The local papers had written about it, rumors of strange noises, of shadowy figures glimpsed through broken windows. That evening, just as the last light faded, we stood before it, hearts pounding. Through a gap in the wooden boards, we found our entrance. Inside, the air was heavy with dust, the silence suffocating. A faded sign read, "Warning, CCV." We knew better. The cameras had long stopped working. We stepped forward, then a sound. A deafening crash from upstairs, like something massive slamming against the floor. We froze, our breath caught in our throats. Then, we ran. We swore we wouldn't go back, but the pull of the unknown was too strong. The second time, as we stood near the back entrance, an overwhelming sense of dread settled over me. A feeling so thick, It was almost suffocating. And then, I heard it. A piercing scream, high and sharp, cutting through the air. My stomach dropped. I spun around, expecting to see someone. Something. But the others stood motionless, staring at me in confusion. They hadn't heard a thing. My mind raced. Was it real? Had fear twisted my senses? But deep down, I knew. It had been real. And something inside that house was watching us. Gathering our courage, we pressed on. Inside, the house was a maze of decay. The musty scent of old carpets and rotting wood filled our lungs. Debris littered the floors. Cracked tiles, broken furniture, scraps of forgotten lives. But then we found something that made our blood run cold. A dentist's chair, rusted and worn, sitting in the center of a darkened room. The sight of it sent a wave of nausea through me. What was a chair like this doing in a care home? The air seemed to hum with something unseen, something waiting. And still, there was the tower above us. We dared not go any higher. A year passed. We had put Crosby Towers behind us, or so we thought. One evening, as we walked along the seafront road, something pulled our eyes back to the house. And then, the sound began. Light, deliberate taps against the glass. Tap, tap, tap. We stopped, glancing at each other. Then, silence. But as soon as we turned away, tap, tap, tap. Our breath hitched. It was toying with us. A presence still lingered there, desperate to be noticed. We captured proof. One of us took a series of photos of the second-floor window. At first, nothing. But in the last shot, there it was. A white face, narrow and inhuman, with dark slits for eyes. We stood frozen, staring at the screen, then up at the window itself. The realization hit us all at once. We were being watched. Crosby Towers was renovated in 2015, transformed into apartments. But I wonder, do the new residents ever hear taps on the windows? Do they ever see pale shapes flickering in the dark? Because I know what I saw, and I will never forget it.